Success is about having great options. When you've got one option, someone or something has leverage on you. But when you've got multiple options, you get to choose, because it's not about the economy. It's really about your economy, and winning your economy is really critical.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao. I want to thank both of our sponsors, both the Doc Sites and Dental Intelligence, for their support, allowing me to come to your inbox every Friday, 5 a.m. Eastern Time, with a new episode. Today's episode is called Financial and Time Freedom for Dentists, 6 Keys to Accelerate Both and Live Life on Your Terms. I'm really excited today because I'm talking to someone who actually is the most financially successful person I know, and maybe the most financially successful person that you have ever listened to. So I want you to raise the volume on this episode and pay attention. So I'm excited to introduce Dave Stech. I met Dave at DICMA. It was really interesting how we ended up really being introduced to each other. We were both wearing Robert Graham shirts. And for those that know about Robert Graham, a lot of his shirts are really colorful. They've got really great patterns or images on things. And I was wearing one that had a skull almost not in rhinestones almost. And Dave was wearing a very colorful shirt. And I went up to him. I said, "That's Robert Graham." And we started chatting. And here we are a couple months later, and we're doing a podcast together. So let me introduce Dave real quick. So Dave Stech helps dentists achieve financial and time freedom faster than they ever could on their own. Dave speaks at Harvard and dental conferences on the 6 keys to winning life on your own terms. So very short bio. I really appreciate it. But again, he is the most financially successful person I know, and someone that you need to listen to. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Dave Stech. Dave, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Len. Grateful to be here.
So we met last month. It was DICMA, so it's July. We're recording this in August, being released in October. So we met last month. We've actually spoken a number of times, found there's a lot of synergy in things that we talk about and we want to do for dentists. And I wanted to have you on my podcast. For those that are coming to my event in September, he is one of my guest speakers, and I hope to have him speaking next year in the second annual Supercharger Dental Practice. So Dave and I have a lot of things that we're working on together. But Dave, why don't you kind of give people a little bit of your own background on things, how you are in the position you're in, and let's jump into the content that we're going to be talking about.
I don't know that it's very exciting, but I started in a trailer park for the first 20% of my life. And my mom was one of 10 kids. My dad was one of 4. Those 14 siblings had 60 children, and I was the only one to go to college. And in terms of how I got here, it's really difficult to say, but there were only 2 things that I wanted to be, and that was, number 1, to be a millionaire. Why? Because it had to be eating mayonnaise sandwiches every day in a trailer park, and we couldn't afford 3, so we had to have 2 mayonnaise sandwiches every day. And the other thing I wanted to be was a great dad, not just a biological father. You know, the biological part is the easy part, the fun part, but being a great dad really requires a lifetime commitment. And so that was it. I wanted to be financially successful so that I could outgrow my parents. And I ultimately wanted to be a great dad and have my kids outgrow me. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for, Len, but there you go.
That's great. That's great. And, you know, a lot of the things we're going to be talking about is how to really make dentists feel financially free. So I want to start by asking you what a question is what is the goal that 7.8 billion people on Earth share? What is that goal?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if I had to use one word, it would be happiness. I mean, we all want to be happy, and we all want to be happier tomorrow than we are today. So at the end of the day, you think about dentists. You know, dentists struggle in ways that the general public doesn't realize. We all know the suicide rate. We all know the issues with divorce. We all know how difficult it is now with costs rising faster than prices. We understand how difficult it is from a staff standpoint to be able to retain and to recruit the best people. Those are all difficult things that dentists have to deal with as entrepreneurs. if they were working for someone else and just getting a paycheck every week, life would be easy. But it's not for dentists. And as a result, being happy ought to be the number one goal for any dentist. And eventually, the happier you become, the more meaning you have to those that you live with and love. And that's my whole focus, is creating things like this for my sons and my grandkids' legacy library. So ultimately, COVID taught us that success is about having great options. When you've got one option, someone or something has leverage on you. But when you've got multiple options, you get to choose, because it's not about the economy. It's really about your economy, and winning your economy is really critical. And there are three things that are pretty important to winning it, but I'll just stop there.
So I don't know, because we've spoken a number of times. I don't know if I told you. Did I tell you that suicide actually has been pretty, I don't want to say apparent, but when I joined my first office after residency, that dentist ended up committing suicide. Okay. When I bought my first practice in 2007, I bought it from a dentist who committed suicide. So suicide has hit very, very hard for me. I want to say their misfortunes were my fortunes, because I ended up in the position I am today because of that. And I really appreciate and being able to pass on the legacy of those dentists that I took over for, and continue what they did in their practice. But yeah, no, I understand the effect that suicide can have on somebody. And obviously, dentistry has a pretty high suicide rate. So, but I want to ask you, so Dave, what's the answer to being happy?
Now that is a deep question. It's one that I thought about most of my life, because I was trying to get from a place I didn't want to be to a place that was a lot better. And I remember sitting down with my sons one morning and taking out a napkin at the kitchen table and saying, "Sons, your number one goal ought to be being happy." Now, remember, they're probably 5 or 6 years old at this point. And I was trying to help them understand what they wouldn't understand until later, but plant the seeds at that point. I call it knowledge arbitrage. And ultimately, I was trying to help them get to where they were trying to go quicker before they understood it. So I said, in order to be happy, there's really 3 things you need to do. And if you can master these 3 things, you'll be unbelievably happy. Number 1, make money. Number 2, do good. Number 3, have fun. Those are it. 3 things: make money, do good, have fun. So play along with me here, Len. Which of those do you think is the most important? Making money, doing good, having fun.
I think doing good is probably the most important, because I think it goes to the legacy. And before you go any further, I have a question. Did you ever see the show that's on Netflix called Painkillers?
Isn't it funny? I saw it, but I didn't watch it. I watched an alternative one where there was a guy whose son had recently died of the opioid crisis, and he went on a tear for 10 or 20 years trying to solve it in his neighborhood. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't. But the reason why I brought up this about Painkillers is that there was a very poignant time in that show, and I want to bring it up because you mentioned legacy. Okay, you mentioned how you want to pass on legacy and stuff. And there was a scene where the brother brought in things from Tiffany to the guy who was running the business. He said, "Take those back. It's not all about the money. It's not all about this." And he said, "I want it to be a legacy." And he said, "It doesn't matter how much money you have. Obviously there's people who have lots of money out there, but they said, do you know who founded or who invented dynamite?" That's how this came up. And the guy says, "No, I don't know who invented it." He goes, "Well, let me tell you, people hated the guy. They thought he had died. They wrote an early obituary came out, and the guy read his obituary, but he wasn't dead. It wasn't dead. It was his brother. Okay. His brother died, but they thought it was him. And they talked about how horrible he was for inventing dynamite because he was killing people. He was responsible for all these deaths." Okay. So the guy ended up donating all his money, and now there's a peace prize named after him. Alfred Nobel created dynamite, but nobody knows about that for him. They know him only for his peace prize that he created and donated all his money to. So it's really a family legacy. And I agree with you on that. So I just wanted to bring that up because when you mentioned that, it brought back to that point when I was watching that television show.
Here's what I would say about that. First of all, I knew the story about dynamite, but I haven't watched the movie Painkillers. Here's what I would say. If you think about a legacy, it's really planting seeds in the future in a garden that you'll never see. You think about that. He invented dynamite, having no idea that those seeds that he was planting at that time would turn into something as amazing as the Nobel. That's powerful stuff.
It is. It is. So going back to, I don't want to go miss what we did, but you asked me a question, what's more important, making money, doing good, or having fun? And I said to you, after thinking about it for a second, I think, doing good because you're remembered for what you do good in the industry. But, I want to hear what you have to say on that.
Well, you're not wrong. The question is, where are you in your life cycle? So, for example, right now, I'm all about doing good and I'm all about having fun because I've got more wealth than time. I'm not a spring chicken. And yet, to get to where I am today, to be able to do as much good and have as much fun as I can, I had to make money. So I believe making money is the most important. Mother Teresa can do a lot of good with little money, but at the end of the day, most of us can't. So some of the causes that I support, some that I have supported at my events from stage, where people in the audience who were already successful entrepreneurs and dentists have been very forthcoming about their willingness to do more good because they've become more successful. I mean, my desired outcome is to just add a zero. I mean, Len, if I could help you add a zero to your net worth or income, would you put me on your Christmas card list forever?
Of course you would. Everybody would.
Naturally. And so ultimately, the more zeros you have, the more good you can do, the more fun you can have. So if you're trying to do great good in the world, if you're looking to have an amazing life, I believe it starts like it had to with me, with making money and cracking the code on the money game. How to generate more cash, how to accumulate more wealth, and how to keep it. If you can solve for those three things, life is going to be amazing because you're going to put yourself in a position where now you can have greater meaning by doing more good and having more fun. So that's my take. And by the way, I'm very contrarian in that thought because everyone who I ask that question, no matter how sophisticated they are, either says doing good or having fun. 99% of people say that. And I say right now, that's important to me. But most of my life, it was about making more money to do more good, to have more fun. And oh, by the way, make more money with more money. So anyway, hope that distinction helps.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, look, I know they always say, but money doesn't buy happiness, but I know a lot of people who have a lot of money that they're very happy because they don't have to worry about the day-to-day things that go on that really, cause a problem. I mean, look, dentists, they run a practice, they're stressed out, they have debt, loan, they have loans they have to pay back, they have all these things. And then the boiler goes out and they have to replace the boiler in their office and it causes a lot of stress. If they had no money issues, that wouldn't cause stress. So I truly believe it's, obviously making money, but I didn't want to come out and just say that because I don't want people to look at me like that. It's all about the money, but it really is all about the money. So what are the two most powerful forces when it comes to making and more importantly, not losing money?
There's sort of a 10-point blueprint that our family has created as I've tried to help my sons understand this. And the two elements of it that need to be understood even before you can look at the blueprint and solve for wherever you are financially and try to get to somewhere better. The first one is compound interest, and the second one is compound taxation. One of those is productive and one of those is destructive. And I'm going to prove it to you just by asking you a question. So I'm going to give you a choice. I'm going to allow you to either take $1 million in cold hard cash right now, or if you're patient and wait 30 days, I'll give you the value of a penny that doubles in value every day for the next 30 days. Which one would you look?
I think the penny that doubles in value.
Yeah. So most of you listening have probably heard that. The penny that doubles in value every day for the next 30 days actually becomes worth just under 5.4 million. Hard to believe, but it's true. It's compound interest. It's the effect of compounding, which is this productive thing in your life. But now let me ask you another question, Len. I'm going to give you the same question with a twist. You can either have the $1 million in cold hard cash right now, or I'll give you the same penny that doubles in value every day, but it's taxed at 28%, let's say, a typical marginal tax bracket federally. It's taxed at 28% daily, just like all of us are. So would you rather have the million today, or would you rather have the penny that still doubles in value every day, but it's taxed each day? Which one would you rather have?
So it's taxed each day. I'd probably say I'll take the $1 million up front then.
And you'd be right. But what you don't realize, and what 99.9% of the people on the planet don't realize, is the penny that doubles in value every day for 30 days, but is taxed at just 28% every day, end up not with 5.4 million, but with $67,000. What you don't realize is that Uncle Sam is your silent partner. It's kind of like the IRS. Think of the two words, the IRS. If you put them together, the word comes out theirs. It's theirs. It's the way they view it, right? So ultimately, 98.7% of your compound wealth is stripped by taxes. And when I learned that, it literally changed my life. And I only realized it about 15 or 20 years ago. And literally, it forced me to pivot so I would keep more, not just generate income, not just accumulate wealth, but keep it. And by not losing it, and by not handing it over to the government. And by the way, I have no problem paying my fair share. I'm just tired of paying everybody else's. So that's kind of my thesis on why I believe the two most powerful forces are compound interest and compound taxation. One's good and one's bad.
That little segment right there was amazing. If people listen to that, re-listen to that, because that's pretty impressive. Because the numbers that you said, and the penny that doubles with it without interest, and the penny that doubles with, I think it's a 28% interest, $1 million versus 67,000, or 5.4 versus 67,000. That unfathomable. It's amazing to hear that. So that's really good. So, I'm a dentist. As you know, I retired in December. I put myself as a very good business person. But I'm not very good in the investing side of things. I have a financial advisor. I trust the financial advisor. He's been very good. It was part of the reason why I was able to get out of dentistry and still obviously make enough income to support myself. So I've done very well in the market, but doing it on my own, I would be a horrible investor, just like most dentists are horrible business people. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, because I know a lot of the wealth you've accumulated is from doing investing right, and really predicting and knowing what the future holds and getting in at the right time or getting out at the right time.
Yeah, you make a good point. In dental school, they don't teach you how to be an entrepreneur and run a business. What they also don't teach you in dental school is really how to win the money game. And I had to figure it out on my own because I didn't have somewhere or something that was able to instruct me intelligently. I had a lot of people trying to get into my wallet, but that wasn't really the answer. So ultimately, I got to the point where I realized it turns out that even in business school, so I went to business school and I didn't learn what I'm about to share with you, but I've operated a number of investment funds. My sons and I have created other investment funds for doctors, and doctors to a person acknowledge that they're generally the worst investors on the planet. And it doesn't mean that they're not smart, because they sure are. I mean, they have PhDs, they have doctorates, etc. So they're very smart people, but they've trusted other people with their money who actually don't deserve their trust. And generally that's been Wall Street. Wall Street's a rigged game. And no matter what happens in Wall Street, whether they make you money, you lose money, or you stay even, just the commissions alone are going to generate wealth for Wall Street and for the brokers on Wall Street. So my whole perspective was I learned quickly that brokers make you broker. And I guess this might be a perfect time for me to ask you, have you ever lost money, Len?
Have I ever lost money in life or with investments?
Investing, let's just say investing, just to keep it clean.
Yeah, sure. I mean, people, you take recommendations from people. The recommendations don't pan out. You lose money. Of course I lost money.
Well, the reason I ask that is because my biggest loss was in my 40s after 20 years or so of building the biggest 401k that I could manage at the time, that I could afford. In other words, everything that I could legally put in my 401k, I did, and it started growing and compounding. I left corporate America, and when you do that, you have to transfer your 401k. So a well-meaning friend introduced me to someone at Merrill Lynch. That's when I learned that brokers make you broker. that's when Merrill Lynch took my 401k, turned it into a 201k. And if I still had my money with them, I'd be eating Special K. It was unbelievable. Um, and, I know in retrospect, it sounds funny and it's cute and clever and all that. But at the end of the day, people do everything in life for one of two reasons, either to gain pleasure or to avoid pain. And the first thing of those two that they'll always revert to is to avoid pain. Well, I'm feeling pain. My 401k, my life savings is going down the toilet. And it was at that time that, what do they say? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that teacher happened to be somebody who told me about self-directed IRA investing, that I didn't have to hand my money over to someone else like 97% of Americans do. 3% know that you can self-direct your own money and you can literally not put yourself at risk, and you can make money in alternative ways. It's unbelievable. Now, I'm not promoting self-directed IRAs, although I recommend, and all my sons have them, my grandkids have them now, and so on. But it's all about taking control. It's all about making sure that you're investing in Main Street, not on Wall Street. That's my belief.
Again, I love the way you position things. It really is interesting. Brokers make you broker. I think that's great. In the time that we have left, before we get to the Q&A, which I know is a really fun part, and I'm curious how you handle those, the 6 keys to financial and time freedom for dentists. Can you kind of talk about some of those?
Yeah, this was, I was asked to keynote a few years ago at a dental conference, and I'd never done so. But I was asked to keynote, and I thought, if the roles were reversed, what would I want to know if I were a dentist? If I were an entrepreneur who happened to be a dentist, what would I want to know? And I just thought, I'd want to know about financial and time freedom for dentists. I'd want to know what the 6 keys were to accelerating both. And I'd also want to live life on my terms. That's what I want if the roles were reversed. And you know what? I'm not a dentist, but that's exactly what I've tried to solve for my entire life. My challenge is it took me 85% of my life to figure it out. And now I've got it nailed. So 90% of the audience at that presentation, and I was grateful to get a standing ovation. But what's interesting is I asked them, how many of you would like to have this information? And so they said yes. And I sent them a PDF of just that. But my condition was that they take action. And I know you've got a quote around taking action yourself, but look, I don't want people to be better informed. I want them to be better informed so they can take purposeful action and live an amazing life. That's all I want. I've been able to do that, but it took me too long to figure it out. So I want to shorten everyone else's time frame for deciding that. So I can tell you that if you implemented one of the 6, it would positively change your life. And if you implemented all 6, and maybe not even all 6, it would allow you to add a 0. I've added 2 since I figured this out. My sons have added a lot more than that. So ultimately, I just think it's powerful. And so there you go. That's it. That's my answer to that.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. So is there anything else, and we'll get to what you want to offer my tribe in a little bit, but prior to moving to the Q&A, is there anything else that you wanted to make sure we discuss and give to the listeners and the viewers?
I'm at the point in my life, as I said, where I've got more wealth than time. So ultimately, what I'm trying to do is create a legacy. The best way to do that is to create it through education. If you learn how to fish, and that's everybody listening, including you, Lou, if you learn how to fish, you're going to be more successful in life. If you allow other people to do your fishing, you're not. So my sons and I fished together. They learned at the same time I did, which is why they're outgrowing me in a significant way in their 30s. That's really big. So if any of you listening are trying to add a 0, if you're trying to create a legacy for the future that you can live with your family today, if you can have greater meaning, and I'm not trying to be kind of woo-woo on this, I honestly believe that that's what we should all be solving for, no matter where we are in our life. So other than that, that's all I've got to say. I probably shared more than you actually wanted me to, so I want to be respectful of your time.
No, I think this was great. I really do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift gears. We'll get for ways for people to get some information from you in a little bit, but I'm going to switch gears now. I'm going to switch to the lightning round Q&A. And as I explained to you prior to recording, I use a product called Pod Decks. There is a deck of cards that I pull up that is called the Hustle. So it's all business related questions here. I'm going to go through them. The way I want you to answer them is you can think for a second, but answer them as quickly as you can. You don't have to go into long drawn out answers. Okay.
Okay.
So the first question, do you believe there is some sort of pattern or formula to becoming successful?
Yes, I do. And the primary way to do it is through other people. And I have 6 filters for evaluating people.
Okay. What kind of culture exists in your organization and how did you establish it?
Our mantra within our company is to do fewer, bigger things with fewer, better people through fewer, deeper relationships. We avoid the masses of asses and focus on deep relationships with the fewer betters.
Okay. If you had one piece of advice to someone who is just starting out, what would it be?
I think my one piece of advice is control your own destiny, be an entrepreneur, and invest in things where you can control the outcome, not the outcome controlling you.
Okay, that sounds great. And how do you define success?
That's a great one. Success in life is about having great options. When you've got one option, someone or something has leverage on you. We all found this out during COVID when dentists had one source of income. But if you have multiple options, you get to choose and you get to control your destiny.
All right, that sounds great. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
My greatest inspiration was my parents. And people don't understand that, but they had 8th grade educations, but they taught me 2 things each. My mom taught me love and a quest for more. And my dad taught me integrity and work ethic. So they're my role models.
What has been your most satisfying moment in business?
To see my son on a radio show and saying that I was his greatest mentor.
All right, that's good. What book have you read multiple times and you recommend everybody read at least once?
Boy, you got me stumped on that one. I've only read 2 books in my life. I read Buffalo Bill because I wanted to be a cowboy and Old Man in the Sea because they wouldn't let me graduate from high school until I did. My solution is not to read a book, but to call the source. Call the person that read it and get the answer quick.
So it's really interesting. You're the second person I've interviewed in a row that has come up with that question. He didn't read either. So it's really funny when you answer that. So I'm going to skip that one because that was another book question. Here's a nice one. If you had a magic stick or unlimited resources, okay, you got unlimited resources, you don't have the magic stick. Which 3 things would you change in the world?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you my causes, and they're the 3 things I think would be the best way to describe it. The first one is that I want to solve for human trafficking. And I'm a big donor, and I had someone recently speak on stage. The second thing is animals. I'm such a dog lover. I've rescued so many animals. I just love animals. You know, every day in an animal's life is the biggest day in their life when they see you. I love that. And the last thing is to solve for the elderly, not because I'm approaching that, but because generally young kids and elderly are the forgotten communities. And those are the communities I want to serve.
Gotcha. And the last question, which I ask everyone is, what is one subscription that you cannot live without?
You mean to your podcast?
That's the funny. The guy I interviewed last time said the same exact thing. Well, it's like deja vu here. That's great. My podcast, but anything else?
Well, I'm not going to say anything else because there isn't a subscription as such. Because I'm big on trying to figure this stuff out with my family without having to, shall we say, borrow from others' content, but to borrow from others' success in fewer, bigger settings. Here's the thing I just want everyone to think about. When you're in the course of your life, you're going to say, I'm spending time doing this. I'm spending money doing this. Spend is a 4-letter word in our family. You never spend. You only invest. If I go to Costco and I buy strawberries because I love strawberries, that's an investment in my fulfillment. I invest in people. I invest in relationships. I invest in things that will help me get to where I'm trying to go quicker. So ultimately, whether it's a subscription or a book or a person, one person can change your life. One idea can change your life, but a person and an idea that come together at the same time will put you on a trajectory that you'd never dreamed of, Len. That's what I wish for all of you.
Well, that was great. That was great. Well, you handled those questions really well. I appreciate you partaking in that. That's a pretty popular part of the podcast. So, Dave, what would you be willing to send my tribe? Would you be willing to send them the 6 keys? How can they get the information? What can you do for them?
Yeah, happy to do that. Remember, it's the 6 keys to financial and time freedom, and basically living life on your terms. And this was something that I presented at a keynote for a dental conference, and it was so well received that I created it and sent it out. So what we're going to do is have everyone who wants it go to accessinsiders.com/Len, Lenu. So access, 2 C's and 2 S's, like having greater access. Insiders, plural. So accessinsiders.com/Len. And we'll create that after we get off this call and make sure that everyone has it by the time this is broadcast. And I think it'll change your life.
Well, Dave, this was awesome. I appreciate you sharing your insights, sharing your some of your quirks and things that you have done over the years to really make yourself successful. Guys, I hope you enjoyed Dave's podcast with me. Dave and I will be doing some other things in the future, so please pay attention to that. But if you like the episode, please share it. Please let your friends know. Please subscribe to the podcast. Please review us. Please like us. Do whatever you can to promote it. This is a lot of word of mouth for my promotion. I don't spend a lot of money on marketing to market this, but this was a really powerful episode, and I appreciate you spending, 30 plus minutes of your day with me, kind of just chatting left and right about things. So, as everybody knows, I do this, every Friday. It comes out, 5 a.m. Eastern time. I want to again thank the sponsors, both Dental and Tele and the doc sites, for their support. And as I always end my podcasts, remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, Dave, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll talk to everyone soon.